I can't do it. I'm not sure what I need to do. That's so unfortunate. Let me see if it shows that I'm live over here, because then what I can do, oh yeah, I can. Okay, great, that's good. Share, copy, okay. And then here we can go here because it's not working. Join the conversation, open the panel. Where are the... Oh. And there's no... Yeah, it's not... Okay, so I'll give people a minute to join. This is a nightmare. Ugh. What happened? Hi. I see a couple people joining. Terribly sorry about the confusion. Had to pull it up on my phone. I can't figure out for some reason how to do it on the desktop. So yeah, I'm gonna send one email really quickly because someone was trying to get in. So I'm gonna let them know where to meet us and then we'll get started. I am super excited. Hey girl, Vanny, how are you? So let me know in the comments if you saw me on TikTok or on YouTube or somewhere else, so I can understand, like, you know, where most folks are connecting with me at. Ah, Swifty, I know you. How are you? Lovely. Okay, and so Sybil was the one who needed the link. And so let me just send her that link really quickly. Oh, come on, computer. It might just be my computer. Something's like, maybe it's just laggy. We're meeting here right now. Okay. So, I'm Jessica Dewberry. Thank you so much for joining me. Can you guys hear me okay? I assume you can. Hey, you're cute. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Vanny. All right. I'll try to set this up. tech, right? I'm pretty good with it, but sometimes it just does not want to work. Okay, so I am Jessica Dewberry. I've been a psychic medium professionally since 2017. My gifts developed naturally, which is the case for most of us. Something starts happening and we kind of don't know what's going on. We think maybe we're going a little nuts. And so when that started to happen, I kind of just kept it. Okay, great, you can hear me. When that was happening, I just kind of kept it to myself. Didn't really share it with anyone, but it began to build and get stronger. And I was having dreams and I was seeing spirit and it was freaking me out. And so, long story short, when I moved to Montreal for about 2.5 years, I worked with a woman from Australia. She was setting up her course for the first time, and I was kind of like her guinea pig to help her refine her offering. And about 3 or 4 of the sessions in with her, she was like, I think you're supposed to be doing this professionally and reading people, and I was totally scared and nervous, but she set me up with some people, but I was too scared to even talk to them on the phone. I definitely couldn't do video. So I was like, I'm just going to email them. We're just going to have readings on email. And that's what we did for about 3 or 4 people. All I had was their name, where they were from, and their questions. And then I tuned in, and I was so nervous to so afraid to get it wrong, right? That was one of my big things then. I had gone and done a lot of college, got a bunch of degrees in literature and writing, and so I was really I needed to be right. But it went well. I received great feedback, and I was like, okay, so I am seeing and feeling and hearing what I am seeing and feeling and hearing, right? And clearly there's more to this life than I knew before. And so it has snowballed from there. I've worked with tons of people. I took a break for a while, though, because of grief and that clouding things for me. People close to me died. And so I took a step back. But then this election happened. And all of everything came rushing in once again, like it was before. And I was told very clearly, okay, you're supposed to help people through this transition. Now, initially I heard after, and I'm like, after what? I thought it was after the Big I Day and everything being revealed right then. And then I was going to help them after that. But, that was my interpretation, and it was wrong. It was really after that Big I Day, once we see that things are not going the way we thought they were going to go, that's when people are really going to need your help. So I've been showing up where I can to provide that however I can. And I've got a few offerings, a collective, because we are trying to figure out what is community. We haven't really had it. We hear that word thrown around. Communities are not strong among us. And so we've got to re-envision that. One woman I was talking to was like, ask the ancestors. Go into meditation and ask the ancestors. And I'm like, okay, that's a good place to start. But then we need to see how that fits into our modern day, right? We just need some different things. And so I'm trying to figure that out. I don't have all the answers for that. But we'll get to the part of this live where we kind of dive into what we want and need for the future, because that's important too. The message is unity, 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 community, connect. But then also, what do we want? What do we need? So we've got to imagine that and re-envision. And be honest about the parts that are not working. Okay, so Another thing that I wanted to do on this live was to see you all's faces and to hear your voices. But unfortunately, that can't happen this time. I'll keep working on that. And, oh, where are y'all going? Yeah, let me see. What are the comments saying here? Where do I live? I am in Portland, Oregon. Can you say hello, Ella? Oh, you're in India. Awesome. You just subscribed. Thank you, Ella. Okay, so we're going to talk about some ways to develop your, sorry, I'm looking at comments and I can't do two things at once. Ways to develop your psychic abilities, your intuitive abilities, and answer some of your questions, right? I want to treat this like a Q&A. So if you've got questions, and if you are new to knowing that you have gifts, then drop them in the comments and let me know what your questions are. Because another thing that is happening right now is that a lot of people are realizing that, yes, they have gifts. They never knew that they had gifts. They never thought that what they're seeing and feeling was possible. They don't know what to do with it, right? And some of us who have been doing this for a while and refining the way that we work with our gifts and how we receive messages and all those things, well, we're getting like upgraded. We're learning new techniques. We are revising some of our old techniques, and we are embracing new gifts on top of that, right? So one for me, for example, yes, I've got all the clairs. Some I use more often than others. But I was told recently that my hands and touch are going to be extremely important. Like, I'm going to be channeling some frequencies and helping people, giving people frequency upgrades in the future some kind of way. And my guides also told me that it's something that I kind of already do, and I have no idea how. So that'll be interesting to explore, in the future. Okay, so break after completely postponing our work, our heart expressed the desire to come into live stream, and our first presentation is yours, which is very lovely. Thank you, and amazing. Thank you. All right, so if you got questions, let's see. Swifty, what's your question? I mean, I've got a list of them, and I can just kind of go down my own list, but I'd like to answer some of you all's if you have them. So what are your questions? Okay, so I don't see questions just yet. But how do you know that you have psychic abilities? Right, I'll answer that question. For starters, take inventory of what's happening in your own life, right? In your own experiences. Do you get vivid dreams? Do you hear voices that don't sound like yours? Do you see stuff out of the corner of your eye? Do you know things telepathically, right? Like you knew that person was going to say that thing before they said that thing, or you knew how much something was going to cost before you looked and saw what it costs. So those little things will let you know if you have abilities. I would see different spirits like standing before me or in my rear view mirror when I'm driving, and it was really scary, right? And so I was like, I don't think I can do this. I don't think I can do life. I don't know what this is and why I'm seeing it and why I'm the only one, it seems, that's seeing it. But in that confession out loud one day, what I realized in hindsight is that I was actually talking to my guides, and they did slow things down and help me better understand what was going on little by little. Because I had explicitly said, like, okay, I don't want to see anyone in front of me. We got to work on that, you know. Um, and that was before I knew what guides were. That was before I knew, you know, what spirit was, benevolent and otherwise. That was before I knew I could set up rules for myself and how I worked with the information. Okay. No specific questions from you. All right. And how I worked with the information. And so once I realized that, though, I was like, oh, this will be great, because your guides will follow your rules. If you say, I don't want anyone, oh, yeah, thank you, Swifty. If you say, I don't want any spirits standing before me ever surprising me, it's creepy, then they will not present spirits to you like that. You get to tell them how you want it. So I told them, okay, I just want it right here in my mind's eye, like a photograph. That feels safe. That feels easy enough. And that's exactly what they did. But then with that photograph, people would show up with X's on their eyes. And I'm like, okay, that's still creepy AF. So I don't want it like that either, you know. Let's take the X's off and instead put a little light behind them. And so then that's what they did. And then I had to work out the mechanics of if something happened in the past versus if it was happening right now versus if it was going to potentially happen in the future. And so now I've got like a timeline of how images present themselves. So I know, oh, okay, that's a little off into the future. That's a strong possibility, though, later. Or, okay, this is a past thing. Or this was really just you thinking about it and it never caught any traction. So when I'm doing those psychic kind of connections with other people. Other things that are amazing, another thing that's amazing is that your spirit team, your guides, will work with the symbols, kind of like your library of symbols and imagination that you already have to help you understand things, right? So I mentioned that I got a lot of degrees in literature and writing. So I read a lot. I've read all of my life, obsessively kind of. Lately, not so much, but all of, you know, probably for the last 30 or plus years. And so I had a pretty vast library, right, that they could choose from in terms of symbolism, in terms of metaphors that I would understand, in terms of, you know, all kinds of things. And they will use those things to help you understand what the message is, especially if you're clairvoyant, right? So you'll see those images and you'll be like, oh, that's a metaphor. Because it's like these roaring mountains and an earthquake happening. And it's like, yeah, no, that's not literal. That's a metaphor for something, you know. So that's always good. But beyond that, because a lot of people have issues discerning, like, what's their imagination versus what their you know, what's actually a message that they're receiving. Well, when it's your imagination, it's kind of within the realm of your own patterns of thinking and within your own library, like I was just mentioning. But when it's messages received from your guides, it'll expand that and go beyond it. So you'll start to see things that you would have never thought of, right? You'll start to have dreams where, one, for example, I had a dream the other night where, actually like a month or so ago, where I was walking on the ring of Saturn. I would have never thought of that. That wasn't something that I was looking into. I wasn't even, you know, I don't even know a lot about astrology, but it felt like if I was to go look up astrology after seeing that, I would understand and learn something new about myself. And it also felt like it was addressing like some vibrational dissonance that I needed to work on. But yeah, so they will start to expand that library for you as well. Okay, let's see. We got to work on that. Oh, identifying what works for you. Yeah, yeah. So do that. And then you just tell them. You just tell them, like, nope, I don't like to see graveyards to represent, somebody just died. That's creepy. No, thank you. And instead, I want to see white roses or white doves. And then that's what you'll begin to see. So guides are really good like that, because they're there to help you in all the ways that they can. And of course, they want you to get farther on your path, so then you can do more work of helping other people. Okay, let's see. What's another common question that people ask about development? Setting boundaries. I kind of just mentioned some of that. In terms of setting your rules, that's one of our big boundaries that a lot of psychics have to work on. But also with what kind of spirits that you'll work with, right? So if you're also a medium, like I am, I had to make it very clear that no, I'm not working with low vibrational beings or spirits of any kind. That doesn't make me feel good. It like totally brings down my energy. And then it begins to have you attracting other things when you're out and about in the world. And so I didn't like any of it. But it was a crash course, because I did interact with tons of things that did not feel good before I realized, okay, nope, I've got to make it very specific and plain. Only those of the light, only, everyday people that we knew here in this physical realm, right? So someone's grandma, great, because she's not a psychopath. She's not a person who, wiped out an entire village when they were alive, right? And so those are the kinds of spirits that I like to interact with. Those who are of the light, whose vibrations are a little higher, and who have been doing the work on the other side of just evolving and elevating themselves. Because apparently, from what I understand, that is a thing, right? Like people die, and then they still got work to do over there, in terms of learning and reviewing what they did well and what they didn't, so that they can work that out and decide what their next incarnation will look like, and what they'll work out in this physical plane. So, all right. Any questions? Let's see. No questions yet. Who's lurking? Come say hello. Sorry again about the tech, you guys. Clearly I need a little more practice on that. I hope that didn't confuse people too much. Okay, so another question that people ask: how can I make sure that I am protected? Well, for one, before I answer that question, I want to answer the question of, how do you know that you're receiving messages? We kind of talked about that a little bit with imagination versus messages, but I forgot to mention the different ways, right? So I said I'm clairblended, and so Spirit will use all of your senses. You'll feel things, you'll smell things, you'll taste things, you'll hear things, you'll see things. My primary clair is clairvoyance, so I see, and then I also hear right after, because if it's like, okay, I don't understand that image, I'll hear it, hear the words being spoken of what the message is. I don't feel as often as I could, because I don't really like the sensations, like to feel where someone's hurt in their body, or to have my heart chakra like kind of going through their feelings of an experience that they're having right now. So I kind of keep that a little more protected. But I have smelled things and I'm like, what is that smell? Oh, that has nothing to do with with what's happening in my environment. That is spirit trying to connect. Some people also hear ringing in their ears. They'll get strange sensations like and chills, over their body. So yes, so they'll use all of the senses. They'll also give you other kinds of messages, like maybe you keep seeing a certain thing out, in life. Maybe there's like a feather, right? And you just keep seeing feathers everywhere, or turtles, and you keep seeing turtles everywhere. And you're like, what the heck is this? I have no connection to turtles. So clearly this is, spirit trying to come in and give you a message, or your guides, right? Let's see, other ways. We already discussed telepathy. That's a really common one. And clear cognizance, just clear knowing, right? So you walk in a room and you'll be like, somebody just had a fight in here, right? Well, you got that message. And you could choose to dig a little deeper as far as the why, or what happened and what led up to it and all those things. But that's one that a lot of people start with, just knowing. Just knowing something is BS and you have no proof of why you know that. Just knowing something's not a good idea. Just knowing something's going to work out. And although everything is saying that it won't, so that's again one of the ways. Okay, so protection. My go-to for protection is just imagining myself in a clear white bubble, like a clear light, a bubble of light with a little bit of color on it. And so whenever I begin to tune in for people or even meditate, I'll put myself in that bubble of protection, and I say it out loud, asking for protection. Here's my bubble of protection. Please keep me safe and let all messages come through be of the highest good and of the light, right? That works. Sometimes you need something a little stronger, and you can ask your guides for more stronger ways to protect yourself. Sometimes my guides will put it's like this triangle beam kind of thing of light, and I can see it going over my head, and it's like, okay, so I'm about to enter into, whatever it is, some kind of realm, or connect with a consciousness where stronger protection is needed. And so that as well, if you kind of walk that line between light and dark, so to speak, maybe your orientation in this kind of work is like, you got to be right there on the line between the light and the dark to transmute it. That's your whole thing. That's the whole reason that you're here, or why you have these gifts. And so if you're closer to that line, then I do recommend, stronger forms of protection, like that beam of light. Sometimes I also picture myself when I can feel, before I go to bed, and I can feel like spirits wanting to connect. I'll picture myself in like a box of light. And it's got sturdy walls, and it's like, nope, you cannot penetrate this box right now. I'm going to bed. I'm off duty. So those are some of the ways that I ask for protection. And then you also have to ask to clear the space, right? Because when you are connecting with people, you're picking up their energy, you're picking up their vibe, you're picking up, the way that they talk and feel and all the things. And so afterwards, you want to clear the space. Take a few deep breaths, clear it, picture yourself in that bubble of light, anchor yourself back into the earth. And that's kind of like my quick and dirty clearing process. Usually I just take a few deep breaths, Picture all white light around me and everywhere. You can also use other things, like there's clearing spray that you can get from a metaphysical shop. There's sage that you can use to clear the space. But ultimately, I rely on breath work. I just sit back and take deep breaths and picture it. It is cleared, it's done, and that session is closed. And at the end, I always thank the spirits who came through, thank them for their messages, and send them back into the light. You know. Yeah. So okay. Do we have any questions yet? Any questions? I hope that Sybil was able to join. I don't see her in the comments anywhere. Am I seeing all the comments? You guys just like to hear me talking? You don't have any questions? Okay. Okay, so show of hands though. Swifty, are you, do you have intuitive and psychic gifts? Do you know what they are? Okay. Anyone? Do you have intuitive or psychic gifts? Do you know what your gifts are? All right, so another question. How can I protect myself from spiritual burnout? That's a big one. Especially when you're coming into your gifts, and especially given the heightened energy of the moment right now. I experienced some spiritual burnout just a week or two ago, and I had this really strong pressure around my head, and I was wondering okay, is it my hat? I've always got hats on, or beanies or caps or whatever, and I took that off and I relaxed, and I burned some sage, but it was still there, and I'm like, okay, I think I need to just go to sleep. And yeah, it worked a bit, but really what it was is that I was just doing too much, connecting to too many people, connecting to too many spirits, and I needed to slow down. So how do you protect yourself from that? Find a pace and stick to it, regardless of what's going on, because that's the best way. For example, when I'm working with clients, it's only about 4 clients that I should see, 4 to 5 in a day. That's plenty. It's more than enough. But before, when I used to go to fairs and see a lot of people in a day, 10 plus people in a day, I would feel burned out for sure. It was just too much. So find your balance, find your number. Mine is 4 to 5, and then let that just be what you do. And then also allow yourself some space in between when you're working with people and if you're not working with people, right? So just like talking with your guides and channeling and meditating, give yourself some time in between those activities. Or if you're just practicing, give yourself time in between those activities so you don't experience a bunch of burnout as well. How do I handle skeptics or people who don't believe in my abilities? There'll always be skeptics. I just ignore them. So there would even be people at fairs that I was giving readings at who did not believe that people could do what they could do. And I would wonder, like, well, so why are you at a metaphysical fair chatting with with a bunch of psychics and mediums if you don't believe in it, you know? But really what I've come to realize is that they've got an inkling, they've got a curiosity. Their soul is telling them something different than what their mind is telling them, and so they're trying to like work that out. And that's usually the case for when someone is skeptic, especially if they engage and initiate a conversation about it, right? They're trying to understand something, even if it sounds like an attack. So with that in mind, I just kind of listened to them, but then I let it go. And because I'm also not in the business of convincing anybody of anything, I'd have to care a lot more than I actually do for me to take on that responsibility. And so I just let it wash over me, right? There are skeptics in any industry. There are people who will not like you and people who do not believe you, and that's just a part of life because we're all humans and we're all trying to figure it out. And often what I know is that when people don't believe you or like you, you're kind of pushing up against one of their limits in terms of beliefs that they have, and it makes them uncomfortable. But that's for them to work out, not for you. Let's see, what's the next one? Are there dangers in psychic and mediumship work? How can you avoid them? So this is a big one. Are there dangers? Yes. Can you avoid them? Yes. So, like I told you, it goes before, it goes back to setting your boundaries, setting your rules with your guides, and establishing that foundation. Because otherwise you'll just be running wild in the spirit realm, you know, in terms of connecting to different spirits, and you will not have that protection that you need. And so some of the dangers connecting with beings that don't have good intentions, they exist. I've encountered some, and they will attach to you. The only time that I can remember that happening was I had befriended another psychic, and at the beginning of our relationship, everything was fine, but then there became a moment where I realized, okay, her integrity is not my integrity, and that's okay because we're different. But I just really didn't like the way that she worked with some of her clients. They were kind of she was doing this whole like love, soulmate, twin flame thing, and it was getting toxic, right? And so a lot of her clients would reach out like, oh, I just really need to talk today. I know I talked to you yesterday, but he's not responding. What am I to do? And there was like a lot of desperation in the clients that she was working with. And I'm different. I don't tolerate that, right? And I don't want clients who take their agency and kind of put it on the side. It's not, I don't feel like it's good for them, and I feel like it diminishes my integrity and what I'm here to offer. And so I noticed that, but I kept on in the relationship, and we were going to work together and do some things, and it wasn't quite coming together. And at one point, my energy was super low because that was right when my father had died, and I, was just emotional and heartbroken and all the things. And that is when that like less than great energy kind of came in and sort of attached itself to me. I had my boundaries down. For one, not staying in my truth with this one psychic, and also was extremely emotional when that makes you like vulnerable to those things. So what did I have to do? One day I was driving home and I felt like I was going to burst and I couldn't understand why. And I got home, I got in the bed and I said any and every affirmation that I could possibly think of to raise my vibration. And it was probably like a 20-30 minute rant. I just kept going. And finally I saw this blackness kind of lift off in the corner and float away. And I'm like, okay, so I had an attachment. Never again will I put myself in a position for that to happen. Ever since then, I've been just very vigilant about protection and staying in the light and being of the light and only connecting to those of the light, because it's a real thing, right? It's a real thing. So that's one of the where was my question? That's one of the dangers for sure. How you can avoid them? Just what I said. Make sure you've got all your protection. You stay in the light. You are of the light. And that's for psychic and mediumship work. So people are not attracted to me who are serious dangers to society, right? They don't come and sit down and say, hey, let's do a session. No. I've, hurt all these people and did all these terrible things to women or whatever it is, stole all these things. They're not attracted to me. So I don't really have to worry about that. But I will say ordinary, everyday people, when I was just super empathic, because that's kind of how it starts for a lot of us. We deeply feel for everyone. We want everyone to thrive and survive and do well. And we can feel their energy, So when I was in that place, before I realized that I had these abilities, people would walk by and just like dump all their stuff on me, all of their trauma. I'd know people's whole life history in a matter of 5 minutes. And I never asked. They would say, oh, hi, how are you? Oh, I'm doing well. And bam, there it was. They'd dump their stuff. I'd feel all out of sorts, like I just got beat up. And they'd walk away a whole lot lighter, brighter, and happy because they offloaded all that trauma, right? And all that heavy stuff. Again, boundaries work well for this. Once I realized I could set the boundaries, then I definitely did. I would envision a switch, like a light switch, right? And when I would go out, I would make sure to just put it in the off position, like, okay, I'm off. I'm not having those conversations. People are not dumping their grief on me today, right? And it takes some practice. And then when you are around people you love and you trust, like your family or whatever, you can flip the switch back on. And so you can just practice with that image, or it doesn't have to be a switch. It could be a window or a door, closing and opening, whatever it is that will work for you, to signal to your guides, like, okay, I'm off, not accepting everybody's everything right now. So those are some of the dangers, because it will paralyze you. If you don't put those things in place. If you're just wide open and receiving everything, it'll wipe you out. You'll be exhausted, literally. You'll feel strange all the time. And you'll just feel like, I don't know, if I'm supposed to do this. And then you'll start to shut down because you haven't put any boundaries in place for yourself. I did that. It was hard. It was rough. It was painful and emotional. There was lots of crying, and lots of hiding in the house underneath the covers. Yeah. Okay, so I'd love to hear from you guys. Questions? I'm only seeing... Is anybody here? Am I just talking to myself? Am I boring you all? I gotta pick better topics. What is it? What is it? Hello, hello. Well, all right. So I guess I'll go through a couple more and then we can work on envisioning the future. But let me know in the feedback if you've got any questions, if any of this is resonating, if you've experienced any of it, if you got stories. I mean, let us know, because we can all benefit from your voice. So we can talk a bit about guides, I guess. Who are your guides versus your higher self versus God? That's a question that people ask often. So you may have a group that you work with, right? So when you hear people say, my spirit team, there's more than one. There's more than one consciousness, more than one person-like spirit, I guess, because the way they show up to me, they look like people, you know, that you connect with. So mine, they introduce themselves as the council, and they talk in unison. There's 3 of them. One is a guide, one is an angel, and one is my connection to my ancestors, right? And so when I began to hear, we are your council, we are your council, I'm like, oh, what is this? What is this? How are all these 3 voices at once? And is this safe? And all the things. And so I went through and I began to speak to them more directly and get to know them slowly. So I'm still working on learning the angel and the connection to my ancestors. I get little inklings of who they are. But the guide, he talks to me quite often. And he has introduced himself as being from the Ming Dynasty. Again, stuff I could not make up, stuff I was not thinking about, had vaguely heard of, you know. So from the Ming Dynasty, was around was alive around like the late 1300s, and I think was really like there was a switch, I guess, from the Ming Dynasty over to the next dynasty, which I don't know what it is. I'd have to look it up. But he was alive and fighting against that, because he came through with this spiritual warrior energy, and I was like, oh, I like that, you know, spiritual warrior looking out for me. And so I've gotten to know him a little bit. His last name is Wu, apparently. And I looked it up, but I've kind of forgotten what it means, so I'll have to go back and check it out again. But you can get really specific and detailed with your guides. They've often lived here before, right, during different eras. And you can talk to them just like you would any other spirit. And how do you know it's your guides talking to you? It's not your voice, right? It's not in your voice. This is not your inner voice talking to you. This is not your higher self talking to you. It's just a voice that comes through, and your thoughts are kind of pushed out of the way, and you're just hearing what I call the download that they're trying to give you. That's how you know it's not you, right? It feels very perfect, whatever they say to me. There's no uhs or ums or maybe I should, you know, no uncertainty. It's just very clear and direct, right? And then there's your higher self, which for me, it is in my voice, but she's a little more patient. She's a little more confident. She's a little more exacting in her presence than I currently am right now. But I'll talk to her too. Like, how did you get from here to there? Tell me what I need to do, you know. And she does respond, and she does work with me that way. Let's see. The angel, there for protection, sends me numbers all day long. So that's another thing you can look for. The angel numbers. I get the 444 and the 111 and the 1111, like all day long. 333, all those things. And you know that that's your angel trying to talk to you, and you can be like, okay, anything I need to know? What's the overall message? Is that it? You know, is there something more, kind of thing? Your connection to your ancestors. So, ancestors, right? Because when people say connect to your ancestors, they don't only mean those who were alive and a part of your family in some kind of way. That's not all that they mean. That's one version of ancestors. But then there's the legion of people throughout history that have gotten us to this point in time. And so mostly for that group, I'll connect to people like Sojourner Truth or Harriet Tubman, like I connected to the other day and wasn't really intending to, or Emmett Till, or Martin Luther King Jr. You know, those kind of figures come through for me as a part of that legion of people. You'll have a different set. And then there are other groups like the Daughters of Oshun, who have recently started talking to me. I group them. They're like a consciousness slash, ancestor type in my understanding. And so you'll have those different groups, and you can connect with all of them. And they've all got messages because they're all trying to help us throughout this ascension. Lots of consciousnesses are coming through to connect with those who are open to it and to understand how to receive the messages so they can help us throughout this ascension process. That is quite a big one. It's not an individual thing, as I'm sure you all know. It is a collective mass ascension happening right now. All right, any comments? Nothing yet. Wow, okay. Couple more. Let me find a good one, because this might be one of the last questions that I answer about that. What's the best way to structure a psychic or mediumship reading? Okay, I can answer that one, I guess. So if you're thinking about doing this professionally, or that's not even a concern, you're just trying to get a handle on what you are hearing and seeing and feeling, you can still create a structure around it, right? So maybe every day you sit down for 15 or 20 minutes after dinner time or during lunchtime or whatever it is, and you say, this is the time that I'm going to spend talking to my guides and talking to my higher self and seeing and hearing, and trying to get more familiar with how that feels, right? So that's a structure, or a part of a structure that you can create. You can also say, at the beginning of this meeting, I'm just going to take a few deep breaths and go through a connection process and let you guys clear my energy from whatever I've taken in over the day, right? Throughout the day. Maybe they cleanse your chakras and align them. Maybe they work on your crown, mostly because we're tapping into the collective energy a lot, and how people are in fear or worry or anxiety right now. And so you just allow them to like cleanse you, so to speak. They will do that if you ask them to. And so you can create that structure at the beginning of your communication. And then you can go into, asking questions. Okay, what is it that I most need to work on right now? And wait until you feel or hear or see that answer. So there is a structure and a format that you can go go by when communicating with your guides, even if you're not doing a reading for someone else. But if you are doing a reading for someone else, again, the way that I put together a structure is we sit down, we take a few deep breaths, and during that time I connect, and then I say my spiel. Okay, I just ask that you take a few deep breaths. During this time I'll connect to your energy, and I trust that whatever messages come through are what you need to hear the most, right? And then I picture myself stepping aside. And sometimes if that doesn't work because I've been like going all day in my head or whatever, I'll picture my energy being poured into a cup with a lid on it, and I put that lid on it. And then I give that reading. And then at the end, I picture the cup opening, and then I close out the reading with saying thank you to whatever spirit came through. Thank you, guides, for the messages, and asking the person, does she have anything that she wants to ask at the end, or whatever it is. Yeah. So, a structure. Okay. And last question for the day. Oh, can my spirit guides change over time? That one, or different things that we can connect to. Okay, I'll try to answer both of those questions because that one popped up in my head. So different things that we can connect to anything. Everything has energy. Everything. So you can connect to objects, you can connect to nature, you can connect to animals, you connect to the collective and to people. And like for one of the exercises that I do inside my class called Psychic Combat, is one of the first exercises we do is connect to objects. So it was this object, just a rock from around a tree that I saw when I was on a walk one day. And I thought, ooh, it's nice and smooth and black, and I love it, and I'm just going to take a couple home because there were tons of them. And so I have the students connect to objects like this and to tune in and to see what they see. They'll often see, oh, I saw you picking it up, where you picked it up from. Or, oh, I see that it came from a factory and that they actually bought them. And this is their process for getting it really smooth. So there's all kinds of information that you can pick up from objects. You can also often see who has had them, right? Especially when they're antique things, like some stuff I've picked up from antique shops. And it's like I'll touch it for a while and see, like, okay, oh, I see the person who dropped it off. I see where it was sitting in their house. I see where they got it from. I see, where it came from after that. So, and then I can often see as far back as when it was created, and, in whatever shop or factory or wherever it was created, and what that process was. So tons of ways that we can connect to energy. How does that help us in the current times? Well, some things might not be safe out there, right? There were, for example, if you think about the election, like lots of, I don't want to say the word, but lots of happening, lots of threats of that happening throughout different neighborhoods, right? With post office boxes out on the sidewalks, and stuff was being set on fire and that kind of thing. So you don't even need to touch the object. That is definitely one way that you can access information, but you can use your other senses and your other clairs to connect with objects and to see what's inside that object. Is it safe or not? Should I, remove it or get out of the path of it, or whatever it is? So tons of things that we can connect to. Not only people, right? Not only the collective. And all of it is helpful and useful in some kind of way, depending on what your goal is. Okay, so seriously though, last question. Can my spirit guides change over time? Yes, they can. Often they will rotate out. They come in to help you with whatever you need help with right then. Okay, and then later you might see someone else coming in and you'll be like, who is that? I've seen switch outs happen. And I'll be like, oh, here's a new person trying to help me with finances or helping me with relationships or whatever it is, right? So yes, most definitely they can change over time. There was another piece of that. I've kind of forgot it now. What was that last piece I was going to mention? Okay. Well, if it comes back. All right. So nobody with questions. So I guess I'm not tuning into anyone here on this call, unfortunately. I guess we can do another live later for that. And so drop an emoji or something in the comments. Let me know you're still here. And if you are looking to further develop your intuitive and psychic abilities, like I mentioned, I've got a class. The start date for the second session is the 24th, I believe. I'll be sure to drop a link in the video once we are done here so you can access that. But it is an intensive. We go fast, we build the foundation quickly. You get lots of exercises, modern day exercises, and then that helps you beyond the class, right? You'll always have something to go back to, always have information you can access. So you'll be like, hey, I don't know what the heck to do about this. Oh, let me go back to what I learned in the class about my boundary setting or my clearing technique or whatever it is. And so it's a really good launch pad for that, for people who are just starting out with intuitive and psychic abilities, or just discovering that they have them, and even for those who've been in it for a while, who are like embracing new gifts and learning new techniques and expanding themselves like that. So let's see, I've also got a collective that goes at a much slower pace. It's much more free form. We just show up and see how the day goes, discuss different things, tune into each other for practice, and really are just there to kind of build community and stay in contact with others like ourselves, right? Sometimes I think, oh, we're on the margins of the margins over here, with this kind of work. But I do have faith that will be changing in the future once we get farther out through this transition period, right? Okay, so envisioning the future. What does the future look like for you? What do you want to see for yourself and for others? The thing about that is that it often starts, there's a ripple effect, right? So things start within our control, right? That's where we start with things. What we can do, what we can control, what we can affect. And that sort of ripples out into our household and how we interact with those that we live and our family and those close connections. And then it moves beyond that into the community that we're a part of, and thereafter into the larger world, of society and government and all of those things. And so we can start with things that we want to see for ourselves, because that's going to help us understand what we need to do so we can kind of adjust the perspective, right, of how we see ourselves. So then how we see our household, what's not working there, what can we adjust there. And so every time that we do this exercise and we sort of get stuck on something, we can always just bring it back to ourselves. What are we seeing? What are we feeling? What are we needing? What's not working right here within our circle of control, first and foremost? And so let's just take a few minutes and think about, like, what's one thing that we want to see for ourselves or for the larger world. Drop it in the chat if you all are still here. I think maybe I'm talking to myself now. It looks like 4 people are here. Where are you guys? Say something. I promise I don't bite. No? Okay. All right. So one of the things that I would like to see is more unity, more community. I do feel like we really got to get past the whole I'm better than you because I've got X, Y, and Z, whereas you don't. Or I'm better than you because I'm a shade lighter. Or I've got more money. Or I'm better than you because I'm of a less oppressed group, as society sees it. It's ridiculous. We are all equal. We could all move in a way that's more connected and unified. But I feel like within our own circles, we've got to work that out. Maybe first, or maybe during the, while we're in process of understanding how to work with others. Because there's lots, right? There's levels to it. It won't all be ever done. And so we can't quite wait on that to unify with other groups. But we can certainly start the process and get to the root of it. If we could just agree on the cause, right, on the root, which is, well, the last hundreds of years that we've been living under this white male patriarchy and the dynamics that has created and the splintering effect that has created. If we could just agree that that's the cause and that's where it started, then I think we would all be on the track on a fast track, really, to like unifying in a different way. But yeah, so those are my thoughts on that. I'd like to see more community. I'd like to continue exploring what community looks like, how it can work, what is actually needed to support the people within it. And while also knowing the pitfalls and where things have gone awry in the past, so that we can avoid them moving forward, right? And then there becomes a level of patience that's needed too, because we've all been like under this spell for all of these years. So we've got to dispel that situation first. And it takes a while. We can't get there in a day, right? Okay, so I'd love to see your comments. I see nobody's comments. I'm wondering if I'm just... That's interesting. I don't know. Let me see from this perspective if I can see. I can see anyone's. I can see anyone's. Oh, that created an echo. Okay. That created an echo. Okay, let me close that down. Yeah. All right. So, okay, that's one of the things I'd like to see. Other things that I would like to see. Let me think about it. Free healthcare for all. That sounds really good. Um, a base pay. I don't know what they call that, where everybody gets a base pay in some kind of way, regardless of what they do or where they live. You know, and maybe it caps out at a certain income level. Like those making 500,000 a year, they probably don't need this $1,100 or $1,300 or whatever it is, and so it can kind of incrementally phase out the more you make over a certain income level. So that's another thing that I'd like to see. I'd like to see more communication also with us everyday folk on the ground and those in higher positions, right? So I don't need a politician like in a district representing me who's never asked me questions or never asked anyone who lives where we live questions, right? Who just makes decisions and kind of drops that information off for those in Congress or whatever they do. I don't want that anymore. I'd like to see us more involved, right? And so one of the messages that I received, and I mentioned it in one of the videos where I was in a meditation and I connected to Jesus Christ. And I'm not religious at all, but that's who came through. And a part of that image at the end was of smaller communities taking tasks that we had listed as our wants, right, collectively. So I had sorted and sifted my pile of wants and the things that I don't want. And then I took my pile of wants and I added it to other people's piles of wants who had done the same. And then there was another sorting process that happened, and it was categorized like from, higher order to lower order concerns. And then there were smaller groups like committees that came and began that implementation process of the different things that we had listed. So I would love to see that. Clearly, if I'm seeing it in my mind's eye, it must be possible. It hasn't been done like that, maybe ever here in this country. I'm sure some other cultures do it that way. And so it would be nice to see and just know that the things that we are most concerned with or the things that we most need, like that message is actually getting through to the higher ups. But they kept showing it to me like elders, right? Elders of the community, elders of the land, kind of being the spokesperson for an area and being a part of the committee of people that work on those lists of wants. I would love that. I totally love it. Okay, so those are the immediate things that I can think of. And I think we've only got about, what is it? A few minutes here anyway. One of the other things I do when I can't get specific and I don't quite know what else to add to my list, I go back to just the general feeling of peace and harmony and camaraderie and working together, because even that is enough. Like, you're signaling energetically, like, hey, these are the things that I want. I don't know really how they need to look yet, And that's totally fine too, right? So you can always kind of get into the energy that way. And it's a lovely way, just day to day, to sort of, I mean, it does many things, right? It shifts you from the energy of worry and fear about what's going on out there into the energy of peace and harmony and love, which is ultimately what we all want when it comes down to it, right? Within our own lives and for other people. So it does that. And then it also raises your vibration. You know how high of a vibration the energy of love is? When I'm in meditation sometimes and here's that energy of love or unconditional love, it's big. It's like all encompassing. It's it's just so clear and strong and sturdy, right? And that is so much. That is a much more conducive to creating a world that we want. You know, when we tap into that, into an energy like that, than trying to create it from a place of fear or lack or worry, right? It's like it's so strong. Sometimes I'm scared of it because it'll come in and try to and like connect with the heart chakra and kind of consume me, and I'm like, ooh, I can only do this for a minute or two. Is it over? You know, because it's overwhelming. It's so powerful. So ease into it, right? That's what I'm hearing right now. Ease into it. Yeah. And that's what I do little by little. But it can also be overwhelming and powerful when you haven't had a lot of that in your own personal life, right? Like, yes, you may have love. Is it unconditional? We're humans. We don't often give unconditional love out. Our love has conditions. And sometimes for good reasons, right? It helps us keep boundaries. It helps us um, keep ourselves safe. And so, but when you're in meditation, you can definitely ease into that and begin to get familiar with it and go back to that love, that peace, that harmony, freedom, you know, just all the good feeling things when you're thinking about the world that you want to have for your future and the life that you want to have for your future as well. So, okay, that's pretty much all I've got for you today. I mean, if anyone's here, you can all take a few deep breaths together. Clear the space. I thank you for joining me today. I do. Please forgive me for the tech issues. I'll work those out for the future. And as I'm taking these deep breaths, I'm just like feeling into that energy of peace and love and harmony. And I ask that we all have more of that. Oh, there it is. I ask that we all have more of that in our immediate future. Immediate. Like so immediate. As I'm saying immediate, we're getting there, you know. I ask that we have more of that we receive more of that we know how to receive more of that in our immediate future and in our long-term future. And that the world we live in begin to reflect that, so that energetically it it connects out right into our future, and the world begins to reflect it back. Okay, one more deep breath. All right, and so once this video processes and I put it back up, I'll be sure to put the links in there to the class if you're interested in that, to the collective if you're interested in that, to my one-on-ones if you're interested in working with me directly. I've got all the links though in the original video where I was supposed to go live. So if you want to look there, you can find it. It's also, they're all in my bio as well. But I guess I will end here unless anyone has any comments, anything to share. I wonder if I'm just not seeing them for some reason. I don't know. But okay. Thank you for your time today. We'll do this again. And I'm sure the more I do it, the more seamless it will become. But I will see you soon. And you have a great rest of your Sunday. And I'll connect with you on the other platforms, on TT. If you're not connected with me over there, I ask that you go connect. Oh, and if you haven't subscribed to this channel and you like what you heard today, then please hit the like and subscribe and set your notifications. And I'll see you soon. Now, how do I end? Let's see. Okay, I'm just going to hit the X. See you guys later. Bye.